Thank you very much for being with us. We're excited to have Mr. Jonathan Burry, Joe, with us today from AOL. Joe is the head of business development for international at AOL, with a wealth of experience in the media and advertising sector, 15 years working in the media and advertising business, past 5 years really focused on digital. And we're going to get into how things are going internationally in terms of the media and advertising market, the supply side, the demand side, what publishers can do, what advertisers can do, and the things that are changing how the sector works. So we'll start out. Joe and I had a conversation before. We were talking, and he was telling me AOL, you said AOL is all about culture and code.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by culture and code and what that means for AOL?
So I think one of the things in our conversation that came out is that this industry speaks in three-letter acronyms, and I do quite a lot, so I apologize now if I do that ahead of time. But we look at the digital media ecosystem in a way of simplifying it by calling one element and one side of it culture and the other side code. And within culture, what we actually looked at and what we're referring about is engaging, leaning forward content experiences, which really actually drive the user into either content or into actually brand discovery. The other side of it is actually then code, and that very much is often referred to as programmatic, but programmatic only really countenances advertising. This actually countenances both distribution of content, creation of content, and actually also the advertising piece. And within that, it's really harnessing data to be able to create efficiencies between advertisers and publishers, where advertisers actually acquire the customers and audiences that they want more precisely, and where publishers actually start to increase yield through actually being able to more effectively trade their sort of long tail and their run of sight, and now actually their premium format media. Within there, it's then all really connected. Both parts of those ecosystems are directly connected. So you have the data that you create through culture is then used to be able to identify and amplify either advertising campaigns once they've engaged with a branded piece of content, or to be able to understand that this person's been visiting an automotive piece of content and therefore they were looking at a review, they're an auto intender for this particular segment. So,
interesting. Data has been a topic of discussion across the whole event, whether it's on the media and advertising side, whether it's on government, enterprise. Everybody today is obsessed with data. What are the challenges for data integration for publishers and advertisers? What are the kind of main obstacles that they're facing or the things that they need to look out for?
So I think the first, and I think everybody understands this, is data at scale. So actually, for it really to make an impact and be effective, you need to be able to access audiences at scale to actually deliver that. And unfortunately, the publishing world and the advertising world have both been very fragmented over the years, seeing people as competitors. So actually the idea of colluding or using other people's media with your data and those sort of elements is a challenge to overcome. I think the other part is actually that our businesses are slightly different than actually data. AOL is a very lucky business. It had a business called ad.com, in which was a data-driven business in the early noughties. But the idea of being a publisher or actually also being an agency and actually having mathematicians driving your business is a significant mind shift. And I mean, I was with a very large, very traditional OTC, Thomas Cook, last week, seeing their CMO. And we were talking about some complex three-letter acronyms. And he just said, we need some mathematicians. And the thing that was amazing in the room, two guys went, we're both mathematicians, we're yield analysts across the business. So it is there, it's just reimagining people within the businesses. I think the other major challenge, and this again is that, and I don't want to say this, I said I perhaps wouldn't manage to say this, but actually there are already platforms out there at scale. And that means that actually the margins that agencies are achieving...
Platforms that are data at scale like?
I think, social media, Google, those sort of elements within there.
For sure. I mean, those guys are collecting every piece of data about us and using it to target us ever so closely.
And then constructing deals which actually maximize margins for themselves, put pressures upon agencies in terms of actually the diversity of campaigns and their trading agreements, and then also looks at actually in terms of publishers, their goal is not to increase your yield at the end of it. Well, that's the way I look at it.
Interesting. Well, so what can publishers do about this, right? If we're saying, here you are, you've got Facebook, you've got Google, you've got YouTube, these guys are capturing tremendous amounts of data at scale. I'm a small publisher. I can't capture the same scale of data. What can I do? Or what should I do?
So the simple thing is partnership or collaboration. There are great examples of it. So we work in the UK with an automotive website where we work with them in partnership on data, and then we actually scale that across our audience for them. There are other examples in terms of businesses. We work with a business in this region, DMS. They basically take our branded content platform. They create branded content campaigns. They use our platform to distribute the content across a network of different publishing sites. They then actually learn the data from that, take it in. They have data scientists who then look at that audience, so who's viewed that ad, and go and target them again across other advertisers at a premium yield because it's video or premium formats. And they also then probabilistically model that out to be able to say, well, this person viewed this content, these people look like they would be interested as well, and will go and view that content. And what you see is an increase in yield for everybody, and agencies like it because branded content is a different trading model for them. It has a better yield as well for their businesses.
Interesting. So let's talk a little bit, let's shift from the advertiser side to the content side. What are the key shifts that you're seeing in the content consumption space?
So I think that the biggest shift, and I should actually just outline, I spent from 2003 until 2013 working as a publisher. So I have a sort of, I'm always on the side of a publisher. I can't help it. It's in my DNA. And actually AOL are a publisher, but I work now on the platform side of that business. Within there, the biggest challenge is actually mobile has created a different way in which people engage. People snack content in a much shorter format. Within that snackability, they tend to do it not on destination sites. The way in which a certain type of audience is now engaging is going through social networks such as Snapchat, Discover, Facebook, Instant Articles, to a certain degree Apple News. And within that, from a publishing perspective, the yield is significantly decreased. And again, from an agency perspective, there is an imbalance in the fact of the choice, which actually then gives them competitive leverage to actually negotiate and get better margins.
So, and this snackable content, what kinds of content are we seeing flourish? Is it all sorts of media? Or?
I think that there's an interesting, the one thing is that all content has to be engaging because of the changes in actually, again, 4G, actually being able to watch video on your phone anywhere has created a revolution. Again, we saw that 4 years before that with Wi-Fi access within the home within Europe. And again, we saw a massive change in the consumption of video content across desktop sites. So within there, I think video, and that's both short form and actually long form VOD content, is one of the major sort of changes in it. And then I think, again, is that, and I don't, the way in which people engage with certain things, the listicles, that whole BuzzFeed approach to things has also changed the way in that we look at articles. So actually, some people call it clickbait, but I call it just infotainment. People want to see stuff quickly, they go and do it. So that creates challenges and actually benefits for publishers. You have to change and think about the type of content that you're producing. But at the same time, you have to make sure that that content reflects actually what your masthead, your brand, you actually are as a business, or else you then start to basically lose your brand identity.
For sure. I think I call it the BuzzFeedification of the internet. And I wonder sometimes about it, but that's a totally other conversation for another day. But so interesting here, we touched on three kind of key trends, mobility and mobile video in particular, and on social or and other distribution platforms, so less of a destination site, and understanding that. So, but video. Video is everywhere. Everyone's talking about video. We'll have a panel later here on this stage talking about video and distribution. So it'll be very relevant to this discussion. But creating video at scale, that's a challenge, right? It takes a lot of money to create video, especially premium video. What kind of best practices or insights can you share with us about creating video content at scale? So
the first is probably giving experience of Huffington Post. Huffington Post has video or delivers video at scale through Huffington Post 24 Live. Within there, the first thing they did was set up a massive video operation and realized exactly what you just said. This is a very expensive business, and the ROI is not great. So what they actually looked at doing was changing the way in which editorial works to embedding into pods video production resources with desks. So you have your lifestyle desk, your entertainment desk, and actually having people say, as they're developing the stories, those people can actually either source video, which we'll talk about in a minute, or they can go out and create video which is engaging. So that's the first piece of how you solve for that.
So kind of mini cluster teams that are very lean and that are being able to generate large volumes of video content.
Yeah, large, quick, and smart.
Okay.
The next sort of element there is looking at actually collaboration. So there are two ways that we collaborate in AOL with video, and actually AOL, and when I say AOL, Verizon as well, is we work in partnership with a number of different sort of broadcast video production companies and also other publishers such as Hearst. So with Hearst, we have a number of joint ventures where next year we'll start to be actually delivering high-quality short-form content both on an editorial basis but also on a real 100% entertainment basis for people. And that's an investment, but by doing it together, it actually is reducing our costs and the overhead of doing that. And actually, it helps us then use our partners to distribute it. That comes into the second piece that, again, AOL look at, and that is basically syndication. So we have a platform which enables the Huffington Post to upload all of its content into a video platform, and then we have a network of, at last count, 2,700 partners, so other publishers, who can actually pull that content and then semantically decide what they do with it, and we give them tools as well to enable them to be able to embed it in different formats across their site, which in itself then enables them to increase, one, the amount of embedded video into pages, and two, and this is crucial, the linking of content. So when I've actually got somebody engaged in content, they've just watched a 15-second ad, we want to entertain them and reward them to get that next ad view as well.
So you're talking a lot about partnerships across media, right? Partnerships between media and other media. If I'm a publisher and I ask you, what should I do to partner with these other media? Excuse me. What can I partner with them on? What should I do? What should we do together to be able to face kind of these larger groups that are today dominating?
So I think I don't know fully the region's media entities. What I do know is that there's always going to be adjacent niche media that works with big players. So again, looking at are the relationships, whether it's symbiotic between this company plays very well in this particular space, we've got audience at scale that we can use to access that in the same way as with data. The other element is we have a platform which can enable you to go and do that, and at some point it will be within this region, well, very shortly will be in this region. And then the other sort of point is actually to think about what is it I actually want to achieve, because having an actual strategy sitting there saying this is the media that I want, who should I collaborate with, and also the Facebooks, the YouTubes, they are massive. You still need to use those businesses, but you need to understand how you optimize for that and where they fit within the ecosystem.
So we talked about, okay, great, we have a complementary media site. You're in auto, I'm in female. We can collaborate somehow to support each other. Are there specific recommendations or areas of collaboration that you would suggest?
So I think that it's within there is actually understanding where you have key audience similarities and then being able to see what is it that we can create which is similar. So actually, again, I've not seen any products of this, but Hearst and Condé Nast are actually putting together a number of short video formats, and they're looking at taking that into OTT and other elements from there. So it's really to understand, do our audiences match, or do they complement each other? And then from there, understanding about how does this work with my brand? I think you still have to look at the end of the day is how does this work with my brand? And then use social media to drive people back in.
And beyond content, is there, could we collaborate, I guess, on sales, on other opportunities?
Yes, the simple thing, again, I'm working in Latin America currently discussing deals with a number of publishing houses, how we look at replicating the deal we have with Microsoft. So we are the advertising partner for Microsoft. We represent in 9 of their markets all of their properties across MSN, Outlook, or whatever it's called now. I'm not great at that brand. It's a fairly recent deal. Xbox, MSN homepage, all of those elements within it. And publishers see within that the reason they're interested in engaging and leaning forward in it is, one, we have a technology stack to go and actually do that. 2, we have a data stack which helps them to actually be able to unlock those impressions at value. And then on the other side of it, we have a business called Partner Studio, which actually works very, very closely with the story labs, etc., to actually really create engaging customer stories about brands, and then we have a distribution platform where we can tell that story.
So we said, collaboration around content creation, shared resources for content creation, whether it's studios or other activities, potential for shared data, and shared, potentially even collaboration on business development and sales.
Yep. I mean, we look at it as saying that's an open ecosystem. So within there, we believe one of our tenets of a business is actually being open. APIs change the way in which people build code, and actually being open and having that approach to business is really the next generation of where we can achieve and take on.
If businesses, if these publishers are getting so close to each other, why don't they just buy each other? Why don't we see, are we expecting to see a lot of consolidation in the media market to be able to compete at scale?
There's always been consolidation in the media market, so I think that that will happen in certain areas, in certain pockets, when it's aligned and the deal is right for people. I couldn't speculate who those businesses are, but I will say this, that I hear from a lot of people in the industry that I work in that, we're in trouble. And I don't think that is the case. If you look at historically, when TV basically took over from radio, radio is still a medium and a format which is important and serves a purpose for people. When magazines basically were taken over by print Sunday and Saturday editions of magazines, everybody said the magazine world was in trouble. They reinvented the woman's title and actually had 15 years of absolute making supernormal profits from it. So it's actually, the media will reinvent itself because it understands content, it understands what people want, and it understands advertisers. The challenge we face is cover price and alternative business models. And I know I want to shirk that question. But.
So, since, staying in the realm of talking about acquisitions, what are some of the recent acquisitions that AOL has made to bolster its capabilities on the digital front? And what does that tell us about where the trends are in the market?
So AOL's been, since we span out from Time Warner, we went on an acquisition trail which actually mirrors culture and code.
Okay.
So within there, we invested in the Huffington Post, TechCrunch, Engadget, brands like that. We bought a video distribution platform, and we also organically built out things like AOP. I think if you look at sort of our most recent acquisitions, and we've been very acquisitive, so I will try and just summarize it. The first is actually looking at Riot. So you've seen here we've got virtual reality. We've basically just acquired a VR studio. We're already talking with people about projects for Rio, for a number of other sort of things where we're actually going to be applying that to actually not just advertising, but news and all of the other things.
And creating basically VR content and advertising.
VR content and advertising and all the benefits that it brings, which actually you can see outside. I'm not going to extol that now. The second sort of big change is actually, we acquired, it's now about 2 years ago, a business called Convertro. Without using acronyms, it's basically an attribution platform. And the difference being between this and last click or mixed market modeling for TV is it basically uses the same methodologies together to be able to attribute the whole life cycle of your media. So actually looking at how broadcast, how print, how radio, how display, how search engine optimization, how search engine marketing, how display, all of those formats actually work within your customer acquisition journey, and at the same time work within different types of customer acquisition journey. So if you are the director of a large multi-channel electronics company, you're going to be looking at revenue. If you're actually the marketing director, you know that actually you probably want to drive footfall into stores and traffic onto websites. So it has the ability to look at different campaign agendas and different KPIs from them.
And this, I'm sure, will become increasingly important as advertisers try to understand where to get the most bang from their buck and how all of their integrated campaigns are contributing to their return on investment. My last question to you, sticking on the theme of acquisitions, AOL itself was acquired by Verizon. Can you tell us a little bit about why, and what does this have to do with the whole digital space?
So I think that's a really good question, and without giving anything away, AOL is a data-driven advertising business. The world is moving into that direction as we described. Verizon has been a very long-term client of AOL, and within there, as we were talking about the platform that we released called One for advertisers, they start to realize that they have a lot of data in their precision marketing and insights business, and we have a platform which actually can turn those insights into actionable returns for advertisers. So that's the basic logic behind the deal. The interesting thing about that is, their viewpoint and our viewpoint is everybody should be involved in that. It isn't just about having one telco or one other source of PII. We should be looking at actually creating a platform which everybody can access with data in it and be able to then create algorithms which work for those advertisers. So it's a lot larger than just this is helping Verizon with their data. It's about the whole of the data economy.
The data economy. I think that's very powerful, the theme that has run through our whole conversation. Everybody here should be thinking about their data strategy if they don't have one today, critical for their future success. John, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.